Welcome to Epic World History. In 216 BC, on the sun-scorched plains of Cannae, two worlds clashed. Rome, the rising empire, faced Hannibal, the master of strategy. What followed was not just a battle, but a lesson that echoed through centuries. Bravery met genius, pride met patience, and history was rewritten in blood and dust. In the summer of 216 BC, the Roman Republic stood at a crossroads of destiny. The Second Punic War had already tested Rome's strength, yet the true storm was still to come. Across the rugged peaks of the Alps, the Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca had achieved the impossible, leading his men, horses, and even wore elephants through freezing mountains to strike at the very heart of Italy. His arrival sent shockwaves through the Roman Senate, which had underestimated his resolve. Now, the legions of Rome gathered near the town of Cannae, determined to end Hannibal's campaign once and for all. But beyond the dust of the Apulian plains, history was preparing a lesson in strategy and courage that would forever echo through the ages. Hannibal Barca was not merely a warrior, he was a visionary strategist. Unlike the Roman generals who relied on numbers and brute force, Hannibal's genius lay in using the enemy's strength against them. He studied the Roman mindset, their pride, and their hunger for decisive victory. Knowing this, he crafted a master plan to lure Rome's legions into a battlefield of his own design. On the flat plains near Cannae, he would allow the Romans to believe they had the upper hand, only to trap them in a deadly embrace. With precise positioning and psychological insight, Hannibal's smaller army could move like a serpent, swift, flexible, and fatal. The Battle of Cannae would not be won by might, but by the mind. In Rome, victory seemed inevitable. The Senate, fueled by pride and past triumphs, believed that the sheer size of their army would crush Hannibal once and for all. Under the leadership of consuls Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus, more than 80,000 soldiers marched toward the fields of Cannae. Their red banners rippled in the wind, armor gleaming under the Italian sun. Every step echoed confidence and arrogance. The Romans saw Hannibal not as an equal, but as a desperate invader soon to be destroyed. Yet behind their discipline and strength hid a dangerous blindness. For in their overconfidence, they failed to see that numbers alone could not outmatch genius. The battlefield of Cannae would soon turn their certainty into tragedy. The plains of Cannae stretched endlessly beneath the Italian sun, a barren, open expanse of dust and heat. It was here, on this flat and featureless land, that destiny would decide the fate of empires. The terrain offered no advantage to either side, yet Hannibal saw potential where others saw emptiness. He arranged his troops in a subtle convex curve, placing his cavalry on the flanks and his infantry in the center. To the Romans, this seemed like weakness, a formation meant to crumble under pressure. Confident and impatient, the legions formed a massive, rigid line, ready to crush what they thought was a fragile enemy. But in truth, the battlefield of Cannae was a trap waiting to be sprung, a silent canvas upon which Hannibal would paint his masterpiece of war. The silence of the plains shattered as trumpets roared and the Battle of Cannae began. On both flanks, Hannibal's cavalry charged against Rome's horsemen, dust rising like smoke across the battlefield. Though outnumbered, the Carthaginians moved with precision and purpose, striking swiftly and retreating just as fast, a dance of deception led by Hannibal's cunning. In the center, his infantry, curved in a crescent formation, slowly yielded ground as planned, luring the Roman legions deeper and deeper into the trap. The Romans, seeing the enemy withdraw, believed victory was within reach. Their confidence swelled, their formation tightened, and they pressed forward, unaware that every step brought them closer to destruction. The moment Hannibal had waited for finally arrived. As the dust and chaos thickened, his plan unfolded with flawless precision. The Carthaginian infantry, which had appeared to retreat, now held firm, locking the Romans deep within the curved center. The legions, crowded and disoriented, pressed forward into the tightening crescent, unaware that the jaws of the trap were closing around them. On the flanks, Hannibal's cavalry swept back from victory, striking the Roman sides with perfect timing. Then, from behind, another Carthaginian force surged forward, sealing every path of escape. In a matter of moments, the might of Rome, 80,000 men, was surrounded. On the plains of Cannae, Hannibal had achieved what few generals in history ever could: the perfect encirclement. The fate of Rome's greatest army was sealed. Trapped within a tightening ring of steel and dust, the legions could no longer maneuver or breathe. What had begun as a confident advance now turned into chaos and despair. The center, once the pride of Roman discipline, was crushed under the pressure of thousands pushing inward. On every side, Hannibal's men closed in relentlessly, cutting off all hope of escape. The sound of shouting, metal, and fear filled the air as panic spread through the ranks. The Roman soldiers, valiant and disciplined, fought in place, but their formation had become their prison. Surrounded, exhausted, and with nowhere to turn, the proud army of Rome faced the unthinkable: total defeat. Amid the chaos and collapse at Cannae, the two Roman consuls stood as symbols of Rome's shattered pride. Gaius Terentius Varro, whose bold decision had brought the legions to battle, survived the day, but not without the burden of disgrace. His escape would forever haunt him, branded as the man who led Rome into ruin. Lucius Aemilius Paulus, however, refused to flee. Surrounded by his men, he fought to the end, defiant and unyielding. As the dust settled, his body lay among thousands, a silent testament to honor amid disaster. The contrasting fates of Varro and Paulus reflected Rome itself, proud, divided, and broken by the weight of its own ambition. The battlefield of Cannae became their legacy, one of courage, tragedy, and the fall of Roman certainty. The plains of Cannae descended into chaos. The proud legions of Rome, once the symbol of order and power, now found themselves trapped in a sea of confusion and despair. The Carthaginian forces closed in from every side, tightening their deadly circle. Within the crush of bodies and dust, the Romans could no longer fight as an army. They fought only to survive. The air grew thick with cries, the clash of shields, and the roar of desperation. Those who tried to escape were met by Hannibal's cavalry, sealing their fate. By the day's end, tens of thousands lay still beneath the scorching Italian sun. Cannae had become not a battlefield, but a grave, a place where Roman pride met its darkest hour. When the sun finally set over Cannae, the once mighty legions of Rome lay silent beneath the dust. More than 50,000 soldiers, the pride of the Republic, had fallen in a single day. The scale of the loss was unimaginable, a wound that cut deep into the heart of Roman power. The battlefield, now still and lifeless, was covered with broken armor, tattered banners, and the echo of despair. Though Hannibal's army too had paid a heavy price, his victory was absolute, a triumph of strategy that defied the odds. Across the ancient world, his name became legend. For Rome, Cannae was more than a defeat. It was a reckoning, a brutal reminder that even the greatest empire could bleed. Hannibal's victory at Cannae was a testament to his brilliance as a military strategist. He understood the terrain, his enemy's weaknesses, and how to manipulate his forces in a way that would outwit a much larger army. His ability to anticipate Roman movements, lure them into traps, and outflank them with his cavalry was a masterstroke that has been studied by military leaders for centuries. In the aftermath of Cannae, Rome faced a crisis like no other. The Senate, shocked by the scale of the defeat, called for immediate action. Rome's allies began to waver, fearing that Hannibal's victory might lead to the downfall of the Republic. In response, the Romans raised a new army, and the Roman people, though shaken, rallied together, determined to avenge their fallen comrades. One of the key elements in Hannibal's success at Cannae was his ability to surprise the Romans at every turn. By constantly changing tactics and never committing to one strategy, Hannibal kept the Romans guessing. The element of surprise, combined with his profound understanding of ancient warfare, allowed him to strike where the Romans were weakest and exploit their vulnerabilities. The role of cavalry in ancient warfare was critical, and at Cannae, Hannibal's cavalry played a pivotal role in securing victory. While the Roman infantry was preoccupied with the Carthaginian center, the cavalry outflanked the Roman army and caused chaos. Hannibal understood that the cavalry could decisively alter the outcome of a battle, and he deployed his forces with precision to exploit their advantage. The defeat at Cannae struck Rome deeper than any sword could. It was not merely the loss of soldiers, it was the collapse of confidence. The city that once believed itself invincible now trembled beneath the weight of humiliation. Families mourned sons who would never return, and the Senate faced the haunting question of survival. For the first time in centuries, Rome looked vulnerable, not in its walls, but in its spirit. Yet from this despair would rise resilience. The shattered pride of Rome would forge a will unlike any before. One that would learn, adapt, and ultimately rise again to confront Hannibal. The pain of Cannae became the spark that reignited Rome's destiny. From the ashes of Cannae, Rome rose again. The Republic, battered but unbroken, refused to surrender. In the face of despair, the Senate summoned courage and resolve. Under the guidance of the cautious yet brilliant Fabius Maximus, Rome adopted a new way of war, one built on patience rather than pride. Instead of rushing into battle, they watched, waited, and learned from Hannibal's moves. The legions were rebuilt from scratch, forged by discipline and determination. Farmers, veterans, and even the young trained side by side, bound by a single purpose: to defend Rome and restore her honor. Though wounded, the Roman spirit endured, proving that true strength lies not in victory, but in the will to rise after defeat. Though Hannibal's victory at Cannae was unmatched in brilliance, it marked not the end of Rome, but the beginning of his greatest challenge. The Carthaginian general, deep within enemy territory, found himself stranded without support. His men, weary from years of campaigning, waited in vain for reinforcements that never came. The Carthaginian Senate, cautious and divided, failed to seize the moment. Hannibal's genius had delivered triumph, but politics denied him conquest. For the first time, his army stood still, trapped not by force, but by circumstance. Meanwhile, Rome slowly recovered, gathering strength from its losses. What began as Hannibal's masterpiece now turned into a long war of endurance, where patience, not brilliance, would decide the fate of empires. Years after the devastation at Cannae, Rome reclaimed its strength and its courage. Guided by the young and brilliant general Scipio Africanus, the Romans carried the war to Africa itself. Here, on the plains of Zama, in 202 BC, fate brought Hannibal and Scipio face to face, two masters of strategy destined to shape history. This time, Rome was ready. Having learned from their failures, the Romans adapted Hannibal's own tactics, turning his methods against him. The legions stood disciplined, the cavalry swift, and Scipio's leadership unwavering. When the dust settled, Carthage lay defeated, and Hannibal's long campaign had come to an end. The Battle of Zama marked not just Rome's revenge, but the birth of its true dominance over the ancient world. The Battle of Cannae remains one of the most studied battles in military history. Hannibal's tactics, particularly his ability to outflank and encircle a superior enemy, have influenced military leaders throughout the centuries. Napoleon Bonaparte, among others, drew inspiration from Hannibal's brilliant strategies. Cannae is a symbol of the power of strategy over sheer numbers, a reminder that the mind can often defeat the sword. The Battle of Cannae marked a turning point in Roman history. It demonstrated the power of military strategy and the importance of leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. Hannibal's victory was momentous, but it was ultimately incomplete. The unanswered question remains: what if Hannibal had been able to march on Rome after his victory? Would the Carthaginian Empire have triumphed over Rome? We may never know, but the legacy of Cannae endures, shaping the way wars have been fought ever since.